Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Nightfall Terrors. I know many of you enjoy using these videos to help you fall asleep, so before you start to drift off, it would be great if you could leave a comment sharing where you're listening from around the world. If you're enjoying the episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Now, let's get cozy, settle in, and begin. My dead husband came home a week ago and pretended nothing was wrong. This past year has been a blur of anxiety, a low hum of dread I thought would never fade. But not long ago, that constant pit in my stomach finally eased. It's a strange sort of peace, the kind you feel when you're certain your secret will remain buried forever. Let me be clear. There's no use dancing around the truth. I killed my husband just over a year ago. We were out hiking when a heated argument escalated into something darker, something more violent. Rain was pouring down, and as we neared a small cliff, one I assumed wasn't high enough to seriously injure anyone, I shoved him. I hadn't expected the sharp rock below. He hit it head first. He died instantly. I panicked. I climbed down to him, already drenched in blood, each raindrop bouncing off his head and splashing against me like the scene itself was trying to retaliate. It was as if the storm wanted to mark me with the same force that guilt was marking me inside. I did what most would do. I called the police and the ambulance. I gave a full account of what had happened, leaving out a few critical truths. I told them he slipped in the storm and fell. They believed me. With no record of any problems in our relationship, the authorities took my story at face value. Friends and in-laws echoed the narrative, painting a picture of a happy marriage. And just like that, the lie became fact. It's strange how guilt can summon tears on demand. No one questioned the grieving widow sobbing at the funeral. That's the vow, right? Till death do us part. But no one expects that to come so soon. We'd been married 2 years and together since high school. The hugs and comforting words gave me room to break down publicly. An Oscar-worthy performance. In death, he had left me, and I had taken his place. The innocent, heartbroken spouse. But guilt doesn't go away quietly. It clings to you like chains, muffling your thoughts and distorting your senses. And where guilt thrives, paranoia follows. After the funeral, I hardly left the bedroom. I was terrified, convinced that someday, somehow, someone would discover what I'd done. I thought about confessing more than once, but the longer I kept silent, the more I had to lose. It wasn't murder, technically, more like manslaughter. I hadn't meant to kill him, just to scare him. But that nuance didn't matter. What scared me more than prison was losing the sympathy I'd been handed. I couldn't bear to see love turn into hate. I won't lie. I enjoyed the attention, the kindness. It was like being swaddled in safety. People gave me space, offered support, even looked the other way when I drank too much or let work slip. For once, I was free from the expectations that life dumps on us. It felt like a strange form of Munchausen's, except I didn't need to fake illness. His death did all the work for me. I overcame guilt and paranoia little by little. I felt like I'd won, until last week. I was sitting on the couch drinking red wine when the front door lock started to turn. My first thought was my mother-in-law. She had a spare key and often brought over food. I quickly wiped my smile away and tried to look sad. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was him. My husband. I screamed. My stomach churned. He was standing there in the same suit he wore the day he died, smiling like nothing was wrong. His teeth were bright, his eyes warm. He stepped inside, took off his jacket and hugged me. He was warm. His breath was real. His heart was beating. I was too shocked to respond. I broke away and ran to the bathroom, vomiting into the sink. He followed me, held my hair back like he used to. "Are you okay, honey?" he asked, clearly worried. He fetched water, rubbed my back, and tried to calm me. How are you?" I stammered. "I know," he said gently. "Long day at work, but my boss says a promotion's coming. Maybe we should go on a weekend trip." "You're dead," I choked out. "You died." Did you have a bad dream?" He interrupted, softly leading me back to the sofa. "Shh, I'm here. It's all right." We didn't stay up much longer after that. I tried to avoid him, unsure if this was a hallucination, a punishment from my own mind. That night, I barely slept. His soft breathing reminded me that he was real. I slipped out of bed carefully, like his skin was fire. In the morning, he was gone. I felt a wave of relief until I saw the dent in the pillow, heard him humming in the kitchen. "Pancakes. Thought you might need some this morning," he said, beaming in an apron, flour dusting his chest. Any other wife might have been overjoyed, but I felt like I was spiraling into a nightmare. Did he remember? Was this a trick? Had the last year been fake? "I'm not hungry," I said, maybe too sharply. He looked hurt, then pressed a hand to my forehead. "You're still sick?" he asked, genuinely concerned. I forced myself not to flinch. "You don't look great." "Well, you always look great, just tired." He kissed my cheek and it sent a chill through me. "Should I call your work for you?" he offered. I nodded. He smiled. "You go rest. Don't want you dying on me." That last sentence made my stomach flip. For a second, I thought I saw something. Humor, maybe malice, flicker in his eyes. I ran upstairs, slammed the door, and paced in circles, biting my fingers raw. A knock came. I dove into bed, pretending to be asleep. He entered. I felt him sit beside me. "Honey," he whispered. A finger brushed my ear. I didn't move. He chuckled, low and dark, like a kid who'd been rewarded. Then he whispered, "Till death do us part," and left the room. I waited for an hour, frozen. He knew. He remembered. And he was playing with me. Later I checked Facebook. My old post mourning him. Gone. The photos from that year, replaced with near-identical versions, but with him in them, smiling, holding me, as if he'd never died. Everything I'd gained, every ounce of sympathy, was gone. I wasn't the grieving widow anymore. I was the picture of happiness. It shattered me. This must be what addiction feels like, when the high is ripped away. I shook like I was in withdrawal, so I made a decision. I would kill him again, for good this time. I drove out and bought sleeping pills, strong, but over the counter. I got his favorite wine and steaks. I wanted to send him off properly. I'm not heartless. I cooked everything carefully, lit candles, even wore makeup the way he liked. I practiced smiling in the mirror. I wanted to sell the image, devoted wife, ready to start fresh. When he came home, he lit up, picked me up, spun me around, kissed my neck. "This looks amazing," he said. We sat down to eat. "I hope you like it," I told him, my voice sweet. "How could I not? This is perfect. You're perfect." He took a bite and moaned with joy. "You should write a cookbook." I laughed, ignoring the disgust I felt. "Oh, I forgot to bring the wine. Your favorite, Albarino." His eyes lit up. "Yes, please." I walked to the kitchen, swaying my hips. He muttered something about how lucky he was. I was glad we liked different wines. It made it easier to serve him the glass that I'd filled earlier, laced with crushed pills and resealed. I came back, handed him the glass, and kissed his cheek. He blushed, completely taken in. We talked more, flirted, until finally he swayed in his seat, then slumped over. I checked, still breathing, but out cold. Now came the hard part. I could have left him there, left him to suffocate on his own, vomit or choke on his tongue. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility, considering I'd put enough sleeping pills in his wine to take down a horse. But seeing his sturdy frame lying there made me question whether the dose had truly been lethal. If he survived, then all the money I'd spent and the effort I'd gone through would have been for nothing. Worse still, I'd have to endure another excruciating day without the sweet satisfaction of being pitied. So, I changed out of my clothes and into plain black attire, pulled on a pair of washing-up gloves, and grabbed one of the leftover COVID masks I still had from the pandemic. I covered my mouth and nose, added a shower cap to keep my hair from falling on him, then fetched a hammer from my husband's toolbox and stood over him. I rehearsed a few times, testing swings in the air to determine the most effective technique. Then I began. I did feel a pang of guilt. He looked so peaceful, like a child deep in sleep. But like any addict chasing a high, I did what I had to do. I brought the hammer down again and again until his forehead collapsed inward. It shocked me how little force it actually took to reach his brain. It was disturbingly easy, almost soothing. With every hit, a bit of my burden melted away, and though I'm reluctant to admit it, because I'm not some cold-hearted monster, it was indescribably satisfying. The laughter bubbled up from within, uncontrollable now. Once it was done, I cleaned up the scene, content with my work. I dragged his body into the bathroom, placed him in the tub, and used the shower head to rinse away the blood. I checked Facebook again. Everything had reset. His friends' posts, the family photos, the status I'd written about his passing. All back to how they should be. That night, I slept better than I had in ages, comforted by the knowledge that my once again deceased husband lay in the bathroom below. But the next morning he was there, in bed with me once more, his chest against my back, his arms wrapped gently around me, warm, alive, as if nothing had happened. I broke down. The relief I'd so desperately longed for cruelly snatched away again. Rage coursed through me as I turned to face him, just as he blinked his eyes open. "Morning," he said softly, planting a kiss on my forehead. I flinched. "What's wrong?" he asked. I bolted upright, gasping. How could he claim to love me while denying me the one piece I needed? "Oh dear, are you upset about last night?" he said, his voice teasing. I didn't respond. "You really thought you could get rid of me again?" He laughed, getting out of bed. "But it's okay," he added, approaching me. "I'm not mad. Just don't try it again. You don't know how hard I've worked to make this relationship last." He nestled his head into my neck, fully aware of how much it hurt me. "What the hell do you want?" I snapped, shoving him away. He didn't react, just smiled at me with the same dreamy expression, like I was some adorable creature. It made me sick. "I just told you, I want to make this work," he said with a scoff, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I guess it's time I admit something. The first time I killed him, it was after an argument about divorce. I felt suffocated, like I'd never lived freely. We'd been together for as long as I could remember. Childhood friends, teen sweethearts, young newlyweds, while my friends explored, partied, and indulged in meaningless flings. I was stuck building a life I'd never really chosen. He, of course, refused to let me go. That's when I pushed him, quite literally, to his death. "Till death us do part, remember?" he said one morning, pressing a kiss to my hand and rubbing his cheek against it. I yanked it away and slapped him with the other. He barely reacted, just kept staring at me with love-struck eyes as I stormed out. Over the past week, I've killed him more times than I can count. I've drowned him, electrocuted him, poisoned and suffocated him. I've burned him alive, bludgeoned him, even stabbed him through the neck. But every time he came back just as affectionate. He never resisted, never fought back. Even when I poured gasoline over him or dropped a hairdryer into the tub, he simply sighed in mild annoyance, then smiled like I was a silly child. It drove me to the edge. Interestingly, my obsession with pity and online sympathy had started to fade. The dopamine hit from Facebook condolences no longer gave me the same rush. What I wanted now was simple: for him to be gone. Tonight we had a conversation, one that finally gave me clarity. We were curled up on the couch watching a terrible telenovela, and I let him shower me in affection. I didn't fight it anymore. "Why won't you die?" I asked wearily. He chuckled. "We've already talked about this, sweetheart. Till death us do part." He kissed my cheek and ran his fingers through my hair. "But you've died over and over, and yet you're still here. Why won't you part?" He sighed, shaking his head, that same gentle smile on his face. "You never really understood the vows, did you?" he whispered. "It's not till death I do part. It's us do part. I meant every word. That's why I'm still here. I'll be here until we both go." He breathed deeply against my neck. "You should see it as a gift. No matter what you do, I'll always be right here." I was dead for 15 minutes and 21 seconds. Here's what I remember since that day. I don't think I've had a full night's rest. And honestly, I don't believe I ever will. 6 years ago, I died in what may have been the most ridiculous way imaginable. On the edge of my hometown, there's a lake. More of a large pond, really. The day it happened was especially cold, and the water had frozen over completely. My 2 best friends at the time, who I no longer speak to, dared me to walk across it. In return, I'd get $40. I was 12 years old, so of course, I didn't hesitate. So, there I was, walking across that icy lake after school. At first, it didn't feel dangerous. The ice beneath my feet was firm, almost like walking on pavement. My friends were cheering me on, laughing from the shoreline, so I couldn't hear the faint cracking beneath me. Then the ice gave way. The shock of the freezing water stopped my heart instantly. In that moment, everything went completely white. just a blinding, endless white. I tried to move my arms, but nothing happened. I wasn't in my body anymore. If you believe in that kind of thing, all that remained was what some call the soul, just a glowing presence of who I was. "You're early," a voice said. I never figured out whose voice it was. God, doubtful, an angel, possibly. Either way, it was deep, resonant, coming from all directions at once, but from nowhere in particular. "Who are you?" I asked. "Oh, I shouldn't really say," the voice replied. "You weren't supposed to be here for another few decades. But it's fine. 14 minutes and 21 seconds from now, a bold ER doctor will bring you back. Your mother will hold you close, and your father, he'll cry for the first time in over 15 years. Your friends will visit, but you won't want to see them. No, you'll shout at them for 3 straight minutes. You'll stay home from school until next Wednesday. When you finally return, your biology teacher will give you a lovely box of chocolates. Very thoughtful." It was as if this voice had already witnessed everything. "How do you know all this?" I asked. "Because I planned it," the voice answered. "I made sure you wore those Nike sneakers today. I gave you a passion for the Olympics. You're quite the athlete now, so that worked out nicely." "You planned my whole life?" I asked, unsure what to think. "Even the things you never notice," the voice replied. "You planned every fight I've had with my mom?" I asked, disturbed. "And every word you said during those fights," the voice confirmed. "You even decided who I'd be friends with?" I asked, frustrated. "Absolutely." To say I was shocked would be putting it mildly. Still, with the voice continuing, one question kept circling in my mind. "Well," I asked, "if I'm not dying today, then what happens when I actually do?" "Oh, when that day comes," the voice echoed. "It's straightforward. You'll return as yourself, born in the same year, the same time. I'll just alter a single decision. Maybe instead of loving the Olympics, you'll take an interest in Charles Dickens, or the Titanic, or perhaps I won't touch that interest at all. Maybe I'll change where you sat on your first day of kindergarten, or which bus route you take to work. Kindergarten, bus routes, Charles Dickens. Really? Why would any of that matter?" I asked. "Because everything shapes your future," the voice replied. "In one past life, you overslept on a Sunday and missed a flight that later crashed into the ocean. The time before that, you woke up on time, and the life before that, you never even boarded a plane, because I made sure you had a fear of flying. Every choice matters," the voice concluded. And just like that, the bright white faded. I opened my eyes to see my father, sobbing like I'd never seen before. 2 weeks ago, a family went missing while hiking, and part of me hopes they're never found. We never truly expected to find them. The search crews had gone over the area thoroughly in the last 10 days, and we weren't exactly seasoned hikers ourselves. My sibling Ace and I had always stuck to marked trails, never intentionally wandered off course. At some point, deep in the pines, the trail markers vanished. Our phones had no reception, and the narrow path we were on climbed steadily before fading into the woods entirely. We were about to turn back when we noticed a clearing, a smooth patch of ground with a weathered stone ring for a campfire and a few empty soda cans scattered nearby. Ace grumbled and started picking up the cans, only to call out when they spotted a bright pink backpack. Inside it were a notebook, a crumpled paper lunch bag, and a worn sloth plushie. Found you a snack, Ace joked, tossing the lunch bag over. Disgusting. I caught it and immediately recoiled at the stench. Moldy sandwich remains and decomposing apple. I pulled out the mushy fruit and lobbed it at Ace, who cursed and ducked. Then we both turned our attention to the backpack. We exchanged a glance. It was clear we were thinking the same thing. Could this have belonged to the missing family? We had gone off the path. Maybe they had too, and never found their way back. News reports said the family, Patty and Joel, their daughter Emily, and Patty's brother Mike, had disappeared during what was supposed to be a quick overnight hike. Witnesses saw them park at the trailhead and head into the familiar maze of woodland trails. That was over a week ago. I squeezed the sloth toy. It was matted, as if clutched often. Was this Emily's? Ace opened the notebook and showed me a child's drawing of a long-haired stick figure labeled Smelly Uncle Mike. We both chuckled, but the laughter stopped when the inside cover revealed the name Emily B. Emily and her Uncle Mike. Those are the names, right? I asked, suddenly cold. Yeah, Ace said grimly, eyes scanning the woods. We've got to report this. Sunlight filtered weakly through the trees. No other clues were visible. Clearly, they had moved on from this spot. But which direction? I searched the surrounding woods and spotted something fluttering in the distance. Rowan, don't go getting lost, Ace shouted. I climbed through underbrush toward it. It was a pink sweater, caught on a log. It's a kid's sweater, I yelled. Nearby, a faint trail led uphill. Ace stood frozen below for a moment, then pulled out their blue painter's tape and tied a strip around a branch at the clearing, probably to mark where our original path had ended. Then they came to join me. Don't run off, Ace started. Look, I held up the collar, showing the tag labeled Emily B. There's a trail going up that way. That's not where we came from, Ace said, frowning up the slope, and then down toward the old site. We're way off trail. They marked another branch with the tape. We should follow it. We might find them. We could end up just as lost. Ace, we can't just leave. Rowan. Their expression hardened. We need to call this in. If we keep wandering, we could be the next missing persons. We argued. I've always been impulsive. Ace is calculated. Ever since we were kids, I was the one dreaming of grand quests, wearing a bracelet that read, "All who wander are not lost." Ace believed in maps, structure, proof. The moment they realized we were off track, they'd started taping trees and stacking rock markers. Once they made a decision, nothing could sway them. But I'm just as stubborn, and I snapped. Think of Emily. She's out there. She needs her sloth. If we walk away now and lose any chance of finding her, I won't forgive either of us. Ace hesitated. The sun was dipping low, shadows stretching through the trees. A chill crept up my arms. The golden light made Ace's brown hair glow, but their face was shadowed and tense. Then Ace groaned, shoved the tape roll into my hand, and said, "This is the dumbest thing you've ever done, but fine. I'll go call it in and come back. Mark everything, Rowan. If you die out here, I swear. I will. I promise." Ace hugged me fiercely, then turned and marched off. "And for the record," they yelled, "you're an absolute idiot." I flipped them off. Without looking, they raised a middle finger back in perfect sync. Then I turned toward the trail and moved uphill. There, it was a clear footpath, winding through the trees. I marked it with blue tape and pressed on. As I climbed, the air grew colder, thinner. The trail was wide and free of debris. Sunlight filtered gently through the canopy. It felt peaceful, so much so I nearly forgot to keep marking. I only did it out of duty, tying blue ribbons within sight of each other. After about 40 minutes, the trail leveled out, opening into a clearing, and in that clearing stood a cabin. A pink thermos sat on its steps. I hurried over, grabbed it. Stickers of anime characters covered the outside. Emily's, maybe. Then a thought struck me. Why wasn't this cabin on our map? I knew it wasn't. There. Ace had checked that map a dozen times. Maybe it was outdated. Maybe this was private land. Maybe we had wandered so far. We were outside the marked region altogether. But if that were true, how had the missing family ended up here? And why hadn't they left? They had to be inside. A knot of dread formed in my chest. What would I find behind that door? I suddenly wished Ace was with me. I've always been the one who avoids graveyards at night, who gets uneasy around flickering lights. Ace never believed in superstitions, only in practical dangers, bills, laws, violence. Never ghosts, curses, or whatever might be inside that cabin. I looked at the plush sloth in my hand, then at the cracked windows. The door was slightly ajar. A foul smell drifted out, like garbage and sewage mixed with rotting meat. I steeled myself, grabbed the doorknob, and pushed the door open. To my surprise, the cabin was well lit. 4 people sat around a table. A thin, weary man lifted a finger to his lips for silence. "Wait, are you Joel?" I whispered. He repeated the motion, more urgently. A woman across from him shook her head. Her lips were marked with drawn-on stitches. A young girl beside her stared at the sloth in my hand, eyes wide. The last man sat motionless, back turned, long hair falling down his shoulders. All 4 held hands, except for Joel's raised finger. He gestured to an empty seat next to him. Had too many questions. I slowly walked over and pushed the sloth toward the girl. "Are you Emily? People have been..." "Shh." Joel's finger rose again, stern. Suddenly, the door burst open behind me. I jumped. Joel's hand shot out, gripping my arm tightly. He pointed to himself, then to his eyes, and closed them. I looked to the others. Their eyes were already shut. That was all the warning I got. I heard footsteps, slow, heavy, a soft, amused chuckling. The voice sounded familiar. I couldn't place it, but the more I listened, the more it felt like someone I should know, like a forgotten name, or an old face just out of reach. The sound drew closer, along with a revolting odor, a mix of decay and unwashed skin. Then, a whisper in my ear, so close I felt breath on my skin, cold and foul. I think it said my name. The grip on my arm tightened, a silent warning. The whispering shifted to my right ear. Thud, thud. Footsteps moved around the table. I nearly opened my eyes to see what, or who, was in the cabin with us, but instinct told me not to. The steps circled the room, then faded toward the door, which clicked shut behind them. The pressure on my hand let up. I opened my eyes. 4 faces stared at me. 3 were clearly anxious. Joel, his wife Patty with her mouth stitched closed. God, were those stitches real? And their daughter Emily. But the fourth face, I gasped. Joel gripped my hand tightly, warning me not to speak or scream. Beside Joel sat a long-haired man in a faded denim jacket, Uncle Mike. He looked just like the stick figure Emily had drawn in her notebook, but instead of eyes, there were raw, empty sockets. His lips were sewn shut with thick black thread. Joel tapped the table and pointed at its center. Etched into the wood were the words, "Speak and be silenced. Look and be blinded. Leave and be bound. When the last chair is filled, you will be free." I glanced back at Uncle Mike, then at the others. They all stared at me, stricken. I bolted upright in my seat, but Joel grabbed me and shook his head sharply. Then he pointed to Emily. At first I thought he meant, "Don't abandon my daughter." But then I saw what he was really showing me. Emily hadn't reached for her stuffed sloth, even though she kept eyeing it. Her gaze dropped to her hands. She wasn't holding her mother's hand. Their hands were nailed to the table. Joel squeezed my arm again and mouthed, "Leave and be bound." The air rushed out of my lungs. I collapsed back into the chair, mind racing. Impossible. This isn't real. My brain was frozen in fear. Who had done this to them? Why? And why did the voice seem so familiar? Joel still held my arm, but used his free hand to push the stuffed sloth toward Emily. She leaned her head on it, mouthing, "Thank you." I gave her a slow nod. I couldn't speak. Gently, I freed my arm from Joel's grip and mouthed, "Are there cameras? How is he watching you?" Joel looked confused. I repeated the question silently, then traced letters on the table. He followed my finger and nodded. We began a slow, silent conversation. "Me? Who is he?" "Joel. We don't know." "Me? How long have you been here?" Joel and Patty shrugged. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She just shook her head. "Me? Does he always know if you try to leave?" More helpless shrugs. Eventually, Joel explained. Emily and Uncle Mike had found the path. They heard a voice from inside the cabin. Though Joel thought the place looked abandoned, the others were drawn in. Once inside, they noticed the writing on the table. That's when it entered. Uncle Mike looked. It cost him his eyes. As he screamed for the others to run, Patty grabbed Emily and fled one way, while Joel ran the other, trying to lead the thing away. But he got lost. Patty and Emily ended up back at the cabin, with it right behind them. They tried to barricade the door. It didn't work. By the time Joel found his way back, his wife and daughter were nailed to the table. Patty's mouth was sewn shut. Joel now traced his next message carefully. "Joel, I can't leave them." I pointed to myself, mouthing and tracing the words. "You don't have to. I'll go. I'll get help." "Joel, you'd need a distraction just to escape me. Can you do it? Just long enough for me to get away?" His eyes were full of fear, not for himself, but for his family. "Me. I'll bring help. Emily needs to be saved." Joel hesitated, then shook his head, but Patty stomped her foot, drawing his attention. She gave him a fierce, determined nod. Emily mouthed, "Thank you for my sloth. Please save us." Joel buried his face in his hands, overwhelmed. He stayed like that for a long time. Then Without warning, he shouted, "Run!" The force of his voice sent me flying from my chair. The door crashed open behind me. "Don't look," Joel yelled, lunging between me and the intruder. I didn't see what he saw, but I heard his scream. Emily cried out. I kept my eyes closed, feeling my way along the wall toward the door. That horrible voice chuckled near my ear. Joel groaned. A heavy wham echoed behind me as something slammed him back into his seat. Thud, thud, thud. A hammer. Then, I was outside. I yanked the door shut and ran into the trees. The sky had turned a dark purple, just enough light to see by. I had no idea how long I'd been inside, how much time had passed. All I could think was, away, just get away. I ran until my legs and lungs burned and stopped cold. The cabin was right in front of me. Laughter echoed inside. The door creaked open. I turned and ran again, this time uphill. The giggling followed, always just ahead, always pulling me back. No matter where I turned, the voice circled me, whispering my name, Rowan. I was back at the cabin, out of breath, the voice breathing down my neck. No, I burst back inside and slammed the door. Joel was nailed to the table, eyes shut tight. Patty and Emily stared at me in sorrow. I rushed to my seat and sat down. Then, thud, thud, footsteps behind me, the breath in my ear, the grip on my shoulder. I fought wildly, flailing, landing a blow on something's face. But it laughed, unfazed. The grip tightened, inhumanly strong. No, I screamed. Rowan, it hissed, its voice terrifying and yet familiar, like a lullaby I once knew but had forgotten. Let me go, I screamed and fought, but it dragged me backward, heels scraping on the floorboards. Rowan, stop, it's me, Ace. Suddenly the grip was gone, a human voice. I blinked up. My sibling's face swam into focus, flushed and panting. Ace, I gasped. Yeah, thank God, Ace said, collapsing beside me. I think you broke my nose. What happened? What happened? Why were you in there holding hands with corpses? Corpses. I turned back toward the cabin. We were lying on the ground at the foot of the stairs. The door was ajar. The smell hit me, putrid, undeniable. Ace grabbed my arm. Let's get out of here. I hesitated. But Emily... I looked back as Ace pulled me away. The cabin looked worse than before. Windows shattered. Roof caved in. Inside, in the shadows, the figures remained around the table, still, solemn. We fled into the woods. I asked why we didn't take the path. Ace muttered, "There is no path. I barely found your markers." It all felt unreal. We wandered through a half-dream, Ace's flashlight cutting through the gloom as they searched for scraps of cloth, blue tape, anything I had left to mark the way. They had even used socks and a headband. It was slow going, but finally, we reached the campsite just as night fully fell. Are the police coming? I asked. No, Ace admitted. I didn't get far before I realized I'd rather be stupid with you than risk never finding you. Oh, so no rescue was coming. We built a fire and waited for morning. Ace spoke slowly, trying to make sense of what they'd seen. They had followed my trail and found me sitting at the table, unmoving, I hadn't responded when they called. The family looked like they died holding hands, and I was doing the same. One of them had gouged out his eyes, holding one in his palm. Ace fled and vomited. When they returned to pull me out, I ran past them screaming and ran in circles before somehow ending up back at the table again. That's when they grabbed me, and I hit them. "Oh," I whispered, then asked, fearing the answer, "Did you see anything on the table?" Ace was quiet for a long time. "Yeah," they finally said. "Something about a last chair. All of them were taken, except one." They laughed nervously. I almost sat down. "Weird, right? Thank God you didn't," I thought. It was Ace's disbelief that saved us. When the sky finally turned gray, we stumbled to the deer trail, then back to town. We reported the family. They're still missing. Police reached the campsite but couldn't follow the trail markers. The family's still there, trapped, bound. They're waiting for help. I could find the cabin again, but I'm afraid I don't know what happens when that last chair is filled. I just know it would change something, and the thought fills me with overwhelming dread. If I told you where to look, would you go? Would you save Emily? You probably wouldn't be trapped forever. Probably, when the last chair is filled, you will be free. They said my little brother must have drowned in the cave. That uncertainty haunted me every day. There was a story in the local paper. People at church expressed their condolences. Even kids at school I barely knew gave me strange looks. When a 5-year-old vanishes into a cave and the search lasts 2 weeks, it draws attention. But I never wanted sympathy. I needed answers. Even if he had died, I needed to see his body. The idea of him dying alone in the dark was unbearable. When the search ended after 2 weeks, all I could think about was how long it takes to starve. There was water in the cave. If he had ended up in an unreachable section, there was a chance he might still be alive. My dad had to physically stop me from going back inside, had to tell me it was over. But I never truly believed it. I was 16, a junior in high school. Kieran was 11 years younger, a surprise addition to the family. He was the sweetest kid, even if a little wild. At age 4, he broke his arm and leg falling 30 feet from a tree he'd somehow climbed. Always climbing, always running, always laughing. Looking back, he probably had ADHD, but at the time, he just drove me crazy. I'd be trying to do homework, and he'd burst into my room like a whirlwind, jumping on my bed, tackling me. He wanted a big brother, but with our age gap, it was hard to connect. Any time I had left after marching band and schoolwork was spent trying and failing to get a girlfriend. I didn't treat him the way I should have. 2 years and a lot of therapy later, I've stopped blaming myself as much. I've come to understand that my reactions were normal for a teenager. Just because he annoyed me doesn't mean I didn't love him. I did. I still do. When I started at UT, I met a few people who were into spelunking. They didn't know about Kieran, and I never told them. I couldn't bring myself to mention it to my parents either. But I learned fast. I was driven by a feeling I couldn't explain. Part denial, part desperation. I wasn't just learning a hobby. I was trying to find him, or at least his remains. The nightmares never stopped. Dreams where he was down there, calling my name, and I couldn't reach him. My therapist had her theories. My parents had theirs, but deep down, I knew what I needed to do to find peace. I had to go back and look. Midway through the freshman year, the opportunity came. Kieran had fallen into a creek that went underground. But now, after record droughts, the water level was lower than it had been in years. The original search team had explored all they could, but the current back then had made parts of the cave inaccessible. The hope was slim, but possible. I didn't tell anyone. I should have at least let my caving friends know. Instead, I drove back to my parents' neighborhood, followed a dirt road into the woods, parked, and made my way back to the cave. That part of the country is mostly limestone. Water eats through it, so caves are everywhere. It's not unusual to have one on your land. This particular cave was in a ravine, a couple 100 yards from our house. I got my gear from the trunk and walked down through the familiar hickory and maples, leaves crunching underfoot, back to the creek. The cave's mouth was small, just 2 feet high and 3 feet wide. I could still see it like it was during the search. Yellow tape, police officers, volunteers everywhere. Standing there now, the forest silent. I stared into the black hole once again. They had mapped everything they could, but the tunnel where the water had rushed through had been impassable. That was where I needed to go. The water barely trickled over the rocks now. I crawled in, only getting a little muddy. I knew the cave map by heart, but still brought a laminated copy. I followed the narrow stream for a while, until the ceiling got high enough to crouch. I just needed to reach the end of the mapped path and check if the passage was clear. That was the only place he could have gone. The cave smelled earthy, with a faint rot of old leaves. I looked behind me and watched the last bit of sunlight fade away around a bend, leaving only my headlamp. A salamander wriggled out of the way as I stepped carefully through the mud. My heart pounded. Every part of the cave had been explored, except for the tunnel ahead. If it was open, I would be the first person to go through it, or rather the second. The entrance to the passage was an oval, about 1 foot high, 2 feet wide, with a thin stream of water running through it. A knot formed in my throat. I knew I should have brought help, but no one would have agreed to come. They'd have told me it was too dangerous or pointless, that it wasn't worth the risk. So I started drilling. The limestone made it easy to set 2 anchor bolts for my rope. I suited up and got on my stomach. The slope was hard to gauge, but the water's direction helped. This was going to be a crawl and rappel into the unknown. My headlamp showed the tunnel narrowing, then maybe opening up below. I'd never done something so steep, narrow, and wet before, but I couldn't turn back. Not after all those nights, imagining Kieran trapped down there. It was tighter than anything I'd done before. To rappel, I had to face down into the water and turn my head to breathe. Progress was slow. I struggled to shift onto my left hip, the ATC device scraping the rock with every movement. The walls pressed tighter as the tunnel steepened. It wasn't evenly shaped. The water had carved it in unpredictable ways. I thought of Nutty Putty, Cave, of the man who got stuck and never made it out. That fear set in. I reached the narrowest point yet. It looked like it opened up below. I removed my helmet to fit better. Water splashed into my face and soaked through my clothes. A deeper fear took hold, different from being near a ledge, different from being in the dark. This was claustrophobic, inescapable fear. If I panicked here, I could die. I made myself a promise. If it got worse, I'd turn back. Then, just when I thought I couldn't keep going, the tunnel widened. I scraped through and managed to put my helmet back on. The sound of falling water told me I was entering a chamber. I looked around. The ceiling was dome-shaped, dotted with small stalactites. A large, murky pool filled the space below me. I lowered myself into it. The water rose to my chest before I stopped descending. I had to swim. I couldn't let go of the rope. It was my only way back. I tried an awkward side stroke, one hand pulling, the other managing the rope underwater. The weight of my gear made it exhausting, but eventually I reached a spot where my boots touched silty mud. Panting, soaked and drained, I found a rock to rest on. I nearly vomited from exhaustion, and then the dread returned. The cave system was larger than I expected. I could hear the water flowing deeper. Other tunnels fed into this one. Should I follow the main current, where a body might have drifted, or explore every offshoot? Nearly 3 years had passed. What could I even hope to find? Bones, shreds of clothing. No matter what my dreams told me, what else was there? I decided to pause and think. Rushing wouldn't help. As I listened to the steady sound of water, my nerves began to settle. I spotted a pale fish swimming near me in the cloudy water. Then I heard a sharp crack. If I hadn't been wearing my helmet, I wouldn't have survived. My vision blurred. My balance disappeared. I knew I had a concussion. I don't know if I blacked out for a moment or a minute, but I scrambled to stand. A rock had fallen, hitting me from above. My leg burned with sharp pain, a sensation I'd never felt before. Instinctively, I kicked, then looked down, and saw something that froze my blood. A gaunt, pale boy was biting my leg. His eyes were wide, blind, his teeth stained with blood. He was rail thin, arms like sticks, ribs poking through his skin. He bit again and again, with a hunger I can't describe. I shoved him off in a panic. He was shockingly light. He stood for just a second, blood dripping from his mouth, then vanished into the darkness. "Kieran," I screamed, chased him. My rope yanked me back. I unclipped it and ran, leg burning. I saw his feet disappear into a tight crevice. It was far too small for me. "Kieran, it's me, Chris," I yelled, sobbing. If I just grabbed him, just once, I could have held him, told him I loved him, taken him home. "Mom and Dad love you. They miss you. I miss you." I said anything I could. I crinkled a granola bar wrapper, said I had food, begged him to come back. Eventually, I collapsed on the rock, overwhelmed. In all my pain, I thought of what those years must have been like for him. Alone, scared, eating whatever he could catch. He was 5. He'd be almost 8 now. Would he even remember us? Or himself? My blood trickled into the pool, tinting the water. I was bleeding badly. I wouldn't survive the climb out unless I stopped it. I wrapped my leg as tightly as possible. It wasn't a proper tourniquet, but it would have to do. I left the granola bar at the base of the crack, along with a spare headlamp, turned to its lowest setting. I promised him I'd be back. Then I turned toward the pool. Dragging myself back along the rope, I reached the waterfall. Every inch of the climb was agony. I squeezed back through the tunnel, barely aware of anything but pain. But I made it out. Half for myself, half for Kieran. At the cave's mouth, I collapsed. The sunlight snapped me back to reality. I called my mom. I told her where I was, that I was hurt, that I'd found Kieran. Told her to call an ambulance. My leg will recover, though the scar won't fade. Too much tissue was lost. At the hospital, doctors confirmed the bite marks matched those of a small child. That alone convinced anyone he might still be alive. Somehow. Search teams returned, but the tunnels are too tight. No adult can follow where he went. My parents are devastated. 3 days later, my dad's still falling apart. My mom barely speaks. They wanted to go down themselves, but they couldn't. I barely made it. No one's seen him since, but food left at the crack was gone the next day. I never gave up on him, and I still haven't. For now, we leave what food we can and hope the coming rain doesn't flood the cave. I spent the night at my uncle's house, and I'm still not over it. Every family has that relative. Ours makes an appearance every Thanksgiving. Worn-out trucker hat, old flannel, and jeans that have seen better days. He launches into wild rants about the economy, the moon landing being fake, and how the government controls the weather. It's not natural, he mutters, gripping a turkey leg. Those white trails in the sky, it's population control. Someone's gotta stop it. These conversations usually last only a few minutes. Over the years, my family has mastered the art of distraction. So, Uncle Hank, how's the boat? Retired life treating you well? Did you ever see the doctor about your hip? But a few Thanksgivings ago, things went south. Hank had too much to drink and started spiraling. The government's planning a new virus, he bellowed. It'll make Ebola look like a cold. It's airborne and it's gonna take out 70% of us. We've got to fight back. Grandma broke into tears. She just lost Grandpa. Dad shifted in his seat, visibly angry, then stood up. That's enough, he snapped and led Uncle Hank out. Sorry, I didn't mean it, Hank called out. But Dad shut the door behind him. After that, we didn't see much of Uncle Hank. Years passed. Then, one day, my girlfriend Vanessa and I had to drive south to tour the university she'd been accepted into for her master's program. I was incredibly proud of her. We were cruising down a quiet, forested road when the GPS suddenly cut out. Before long, we found ourselves stranded on an unlit back road. See any signs? Vanessa asked. I squinted. Nothing. It's getting dark. And then, the car jerked violently. Crap. I pulled over and stopped. Smoke spilled from under the hood as we stepped out. The air was icy. We zipped up our jackets and leaned over the engine, with only Vanessa's phone light helping. I had no clue what was wrong. The tow company said they couldn't reach us until morning. Looks like we're stuck, I told her. She shivered, hands buried in her coat. Do you know anyone nearby? I thought for a moment. Yeah, I do. I made the call. About an hour later, Uncle Hank's pickup rumbled down the road. He hopped out, boots hitting the ground. Well, what have we got here? Hey, Uncle Hank. I reached to shake his hand, but he went in for one of those hugs that nearly cracks your ribs. Then he turned to Vanessa. And you are? Vanessa, she said, shaking his hand. Thanks for the rescue. Of course, that's what family's for. He looked under the hood, but couldn't diagnose the issue either. Mechanical, have to take care of that, he said, brushing off his hands. You two can crash at my place. I'll get you to the shop in the morning. Thanks, Uncle Hank. We grabbed our bags, locked the car, and hopped in his truck. A few minutes into the drive, Hank cleared his throat. So, how'd you two meet? University, I replied. He leaned toward Vanessa. Be careful. Universities are for brainwashing. Lizard people run the place. Lizard people, she repeated. They run everything. Vanessa gave a polite nod. I could tell she was uneasy. The easiest way to spot one. So, how's the boat, Uncle Hank? I interrupted. Oh, that thing. He grinned. Still floats. But it's always giving me trouble. Just last weekend. I relaxed. Distraction successful. About 30 minutes later, we reached his home. It was a squat little house, way out in the woods. No neighbors in sight. Come on in, he said. Break anything and I'll murder you. Vanessa and I exchanged a look. Not funny. Just messing with you, he said. Guest rooms down the hall. Bathrooms over there. Master bedrooms around the corner. And if you hear anything strange, don't come looking. What? All right. Unpack and rest. Good night. He vanished around the corner. Vanessa went to the bathroom. I was stowing our bags when Hank suddenly poked his head in. Psst. Tommy. Yeah. Your girlfriend, she a flat earther. What? Flat earther. You know, does she think the world is round or flat? He mimed a horizontal line with his hands. Weird. But I played along. I'll have to ask her. Please do. He just stood there awkwardly. The shower started in the distance, and finally he said, Time for bed. And remember, don't come looking if you hear anything. Twice in one night. Great. Okay, Uncle Hank. He left. His footsteps faded down the hall. I heard a door click shut. Later, Vanessa and I got into bed. I reached for her hand and tried to sleep, but in the middle of the night, she shook me awake. Tom. What? It's your uncle. A horrible groaning echoed from down the hall, anguished and trembling, like someone having a seizure. I sat up. Then a second scream, sharp and painful. What the hell is that? Vanessa asked. I don't know. It sounds like he's in pain. I'm sure he's fine. He's screaming. Just give it a minute. Then a louder wail. We both jumped. Tom, go check on him. He said not to. Seriously, just make sure he's alive. The cries turned into gut-wrenching sobs. I got up. Help, please. It was Hank. I ran to his room and banged on the door. Uncle Hank, you okay? God, help me. It hurts. The door was locked. I'm coming in. I threw myself against it. Once, twice, bam. On the third hit, it gave way. The room was nearly pitch black, save for a slice of moonlight. Uncle Hank sat on the bed, gasping, and on his shoulders was a small creature, no bigger than a bulldog, whispering into his ear, No more. I can't take any more, Hank begged. The thing's voice was low, almost soothing, but I couldn't make out the words. Please, stop. I stood frozen, trying to make sense of it. Your lies, they hurt. Something made me speak, though I immediately regretted it. Uncle Hank, are you okay? He turned, voice suddenly cold. I told you not to come in. I'm sorry. He lunged, grabbing me. His hand clamped over my mouth. He slammed me against the wall. I struggled, but he was too strong. His face inches from mine, breath hot. You should have listened. I nodded frantically. The creature stayed perched on him. Glowing yellow eyes locked on me. The stench. It was indescribable. Don't tell anyone what you saw. Hank warned. I nodded again, drenched in sweat. He let go and backed away. Go to bed, Tommy. I stumbled out, shut the guest room door behind me. Vanessa sat up, panicked. What happened? I don't know. Was he hurt? I can't say. Tom, tell me. I can't. She stared, frustrated. I sank into bed, hoping to vanish. I didn't sleep much. In the morning, Uncle Hank was humming, cheerful, like nothing happened. Soon, he knocked on the door. You too hungry? We were already dressed and packed. No thanks. I'll drive you over to the shop when you're ready. At the shop, we explained the car issues to the mechanic. Hank pulled me aside afterward. About last night. It's fine, I said quickly. No need to. No, really. I should apologize. You see, I have this cat. A cat. Sometimes when I get anxious, it shows up, sits on my shoulder, says things to calm me. I just stared. Last night, it was talking about my past. His voice trailed off. I mentally checked out. Anyway, he said, clapping my shoulder. Sorry I scared you. Let's keep this between us. Sure, Uncle Hank. He waved to Vanessa. Take care of him. Will do. He drove off. Vanessa glanced at me. You still won't tell me what happened? I shrugged. What could I say? As his truck disappeared down the road, I noticed something in the rear window. That same creature, still perched on his shoulder, yellow eyes gleaming. Whatever it was, one thing was certain. It wasn't a cat. Marble veins. That night will always stay with me. Those pitch black eyes, the ash burning in my lungs. It's still watching me. It all started back in second grade, on a day so ordinary. It's strange I even remember it. I tied my shoes, slapped together a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and packed my brand new Spider-Man backpack. By the time I got on the bus headed to the museum, excitement buzzed through me like electricity. I bounced in my cracked leather seat and leaned so far into the aisle I nearly tipped over. That's when the bus driver, Miss Marge, snapped at me from the front with her gravelly voice. Sit down. I dropped into my seat right away. The way her hollow eyes glared at me, along with the faint smell of smoke that followed her, froze me in place. Thankfully, Landon sat beside me. We'd become friends on the first day of school, bonding over Ben 10 and Pokemon cards. He gave me a teasing look that silently reminded me to stay calm. She scares me, I whispered to Landon, lowering my head as I peeked toward the front, where Miss Marge sat stiffly. Her hands were locked onto the wheel, her knuckles pale as chalk. When we arrived, teachers and chaperones gathered us at the museum's grand front entrance. We were split into small groups of 3, each responsible for staying together and keeping one another out of trouble. I was happy when Miss Landers looked directly at me and called my name. David, you'll be with Landon. She paused, glancing around at the remaining students. My stomach dropped. Only one student hadn't been placed yet. And Jenny. To be honest, Jenny had a reputation. Just last week, she stuck gum in a classmate's hair. They had to cut it out. I'd never talked to her before, but now I had no option. Under Miss Lander's careful gaze, I hesitantly stepped toward her. My palms were sweaty as I reached out to greet her, but before I could speak, she shoved my hand away and narrowed her eyes. I'm not talking to either of you, Jenny muttered and vanished into the crowd of students. Ms. Landers sighed heavily. She looked drained from managing unruly kids all morning, and Jenny clearly added to that stress. She knelt down and spoke to me gently. "I'll speak with her about that. If anything comes up during the tour, let me know. I'll handle it." I nodded, reassured that I had someone on my side if things went wrong. The museum was fascinating. The towering halls gave everything a sense of grandeur. Landon and I couldn't stop giggling when we reached the prehistoric human exhibit. The wax models had big foreheads, wide nostrils, and ridiculous expressions, frozen in time on wooden logs. "That one looks like Miss Marge," Landon whispered, pointing at one holding a rock. I burst out laughing, and together we mimicked the figures, pretending to be cavemen with spears. As we moved along, we passed a blocked-off exhibit. The hall beyond was dim, guarded by velvet ropes, and filled with shadows cast by marble statues. I squinted, unsure if I had seen something move. Maybe it was just the lighting, or my imagination. Ahead, Jenny pointed toward the roped-off section and called to the guide. "Can we go in there next?" The tour guide gave her a polite, apologetic smile. "That exhibit's not open yet. It's still being set up. Probably another month or so." Jenny didn't respond. She just stared silently into the shadows, clearly drawn to something within them. Among all the exhibits, the dinosaurs were my favorite. Standing under the massive Triceratops skeleton filled me with awe. I imagined it alive, its horns sharp and strong, ready to battle a T-Rex in a fierce clash. I was deep in that fantasy when Landon nudged me. "Hey, have you seen Jenny?" "I haven't seen her in a while." I snapped out of my daydream and looked around. Sure enough, she was nowhere nearby. "Where do you think she went?" I asked. Landon just shrugged. "I don't know." Worried, I said, "I'm going to find her before a teacher notices. We'll get in trouble if we lose her. Just wait here." Without waiting for an answer, I left the group and moved deeper into the museum. I passed paintings, relics, and old maps, but there was no sign of her. Concerned, I broke into a light jog, my shoes echoing softly through the quiet halls. I slowed down as I approached the closed sculpture gallery. A nearby sign explained how the statues had recently been uncovered at a dig in Pompeii. I remembered what our history teacher said, how entire families, pets, and lives had been buried in volcanic ash, trapped by something even their gods couldn't stop. The thought made my chest tighten. A sharp, cold draft flowed from the exhibit's entrance. For a moment, I considered turning back, but just then, I saw Jenny. She was slipping past the ropes, walking into the dark exhibit and vanishing from sight, feeling responsible. I pushed forward. I tightened my grip on my backpack and imagined I was Spider-Man as I crept under the barrier. The air smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals, barely masking the scent of old stone dust. Inside, the shadows deepened, but I was distracted by what I saw around me. Marble statues lined the room. Some were ancient, their cracks stained brown with time. Others looked recently restored, but that wasn't the disturbing part. Each statue wore an expression of terror. Eyes wide, mouths open, faces frozen in agony. They looked so real that it felt like they might blink or gasp at any moment. As I walked further, the air grew colder and the silence heavier. I didn't want to stay long. I started calling for Jenny. "Jenny, we need to get back or we'll get in trouble." Nothing. "Jenny, come on." I rounded a corner and stopped cold. Jenny stood in front of a statue, made of jet black stone. It towered over her, at least 10 feet tall, and showed a man with no clothes, surrounded by ash at his feet. His muscular body looked tense, his veins etched like moving vines across his arms, though made of stone. He looked frighteningly real. As I looked back at Jenny, I realized she was holding a stick of chalk, clearly taken from the classroom. Without hesitation, she began drawing along the black leg of the statue, leaving thick, white marks behind. I rushed to her side and grabbed the chalk before she could do more damage. "What are you doing?" "We need to clean that off," I whispered sharply, trying to wipe the streaks with the bottom of my shirt. Instead of helping, Jenny just laughed as the chalk smudged further. "You're so uptight. It's just chalk. Nobody cares," she said with a smirk. I ignored her and kept cleaning. As I scrubbed the marble, I thought I saw the statue's shadow shift slightly. But when I looked closer, the only change was a bit of dust falling from its hand. Once I'd done all I could, I turned and grabbed Jenny by the wrist, pulling her away from the statues. "Let's go. We need to get back before someone notices," I insisted. But she jerked her arm away and scratched me in the process. "Don't touch me. I'm not finished here," she snapped. I shushed her, trying not to draw more attention. But then I saw something that stopped me cold. The statue she'd drawn on seemed to be looking at us. Its expression twisted into a furious scowl. One arm had slowly moved, with fingers stretched toward Jenny's head, just inches from her hair. It seemed almost alive. A scream escaped before I could stop it. The statue's head turned in my direction, its movement too fluid to be natural. Then, without a sound, it returned to its original stance. But its eyes were locked on me, filled with rage. I was certain it knew I had witnessed its movement. Jenny turned, confused. "What are you screaming for, scaredy cat? Did a statue freak you out?" she mocked. But her words barely registered. I couldn't stop staring. I was afraid if I looked away, it would move again. "Hey, are you okay?" Jenny asked, her voice shifting to concern. I grabbed her wrist again and took off running, pulling her toward the exit despite her resistance. As we moved, I glanced back. The statue was no longer in the same pose. This time, it was pointing directly at me. By the time we stopped, we were both out of breath. Jenny gave me a sharp look. "What is wrong with you? Why are you acting like this?" she demanded. But her tone hinted that she was unsettled, too. "That statue, it tried to grab you," I said, knowing how unbelievable it sounded. Jenny rolled her eyes but didn't argue. "Don't mess with me," she muttered, arms crossed tightly. Still, I noticed how often she glanced back toward the gallery. "Just leave me alone, loser." She walked off, clearly shaken. I followed, close behind. No matter our differences, I didn't want to be alone right now. When we rejoined the group, Landon was scanning the museum. His face relaxed when he saw us. Without drawing attention, we slipped back into the crowd. "Where'd she go? And why are you so red?" he asked. I hesitated. Should I tell him what I saw? Or was it just my imagination? She wandered into the statue room. I found her, and we rushed back so we wouldn't get in trouble. Landon accepted the explanation, and we returned to the tour. But I couldn't concentrate. I felt watched. It was instinctual, like something was tracking me. I looked around but saw nothing unusual. Still, I smelled it. Dust and ash, sharp and distinct in the air. The rest of the visit passed without incident, but I couldn't shake the tension. The excitement I felt earlier was gone. On the bus ride home, I said little. Landon noticed. "You okay? You look stressed." "I'm fine, just tired," I replied, forcing a weak smile. That was the end of the conversation. A few minutes passed quietly before I saw Jenny glancing at me from across the aisle. When I met her gaze, she looked away. Then she patted the empty seat next to her, twice, like she wasn't sure what she was doing. I sat down beside her. "Hey, you were joking earlier, right?" she asked. Her voice was low. "I wasn't. The statue really moved after you marked it. That's why I grabbed you." She looked out the window and stayed quiet. Then, barely audible, she said, "I didn't think it would." Her voice faded, and then she added, "I swear, if you're lying, I'll punch you." She paused again. "But thanks." By the time I got home, the sky was turning orange. Inside, the smell of dinner filled the house. My mom stirred a pot on the stove while my dad cleaned up dishes. "Hey, bud, how was the trip?" my dad asked. "It was fine. I'm just really tired," I said, trying to avoid any details. "You sure you don't want dinner? You've been out all day," my mom added. "I had some snacks with friends on the bus," I replied. That was enough. They let me go upstairs. I headed to my room, closed the door, and collapsed onto my bed. For the first time since seeing the statue, I felt a sense of relief. Wrapped in my blankets, I quickly fell asleep. When I woke up, my fingers were numb and my nose was running. My room was freezing, and I wrapped myself tightly in my blankets. After a few moments, I noticed my window was open. The wind pushed the curtains aside, letting in the cool autumn air. With it came a smell I immediately recognized: ash and stone. The odor grew heavier, overwhelming the room. I stood slowly, still bundled up, and walked to the window. What I saw made my stomach drop. Along the windowsill were long, pale smudges, fingerprints, smooth, ridgeless, like they had been sculpted in wax. Then it hit me. My room was on the second floor. I froze. My arms hung uselessly at my sides. There was no way anyone could have climbed up here. I slammed the window shut and locked it, trying to calm my heart. And then I saw it. At the edge of the woods, under the moonlight, the statue stood. The chalk stain on its leg was still visible, glowing faintly. Before it, a shallow pit had been dug into the earth. A twisted grin spread across its face, and slowly, its hand lifted, pointing directly at me. The kid ate his dad's face. Then he told me why. The body was missing its face. That's been happening a lot around here. This town has a troubling pattern when it comes to murder-suicides. These days, it's no longer enough to stab someone and turn the weapon on yourself. People feel compelled to make it distinct, personal. Now, they tear off their victims' faces, devour the skin like dried meat, and then slit their own throats. Do you know how quickly someone dies after cutting their carotid artery? Not long. Half a minute, maybe less. A full minute if fate decides to be cruel. That's not much. Time to make an arrest, to question a killer, to understand why someone would destroy the people they love in such a grotesque way. You don't get long to make sense of the kind of madness that makes someone eat a human face. You just don't. So, I've had to improvise. For the past month, I've been combing through cold cases and digging up graves. I've looked into old myths and local ghost stories. I even ran a scan across social media for anything strange or supernatural within 30 miles. Anything that might explain these gruesome incidents. And what did I find? Nothing. Zero. Not a single lead. Until tonight. Because now I've got something. A name. Jonah. 17 years old. Smart. Motivated. Star quarterback. Debate champion. Student council president and valedictorian. He wasn't just a good student. He was the type every college fights to recruit. 4 days ago he killed his father, ripped the man's face off, washed it down with a glass of ginger ale, then tried to end his own life. Tried. Turns out for all of Jonah's talents, suicide wasn't one of them. He missed the artery. Just a deep enough cut to pass out, not deep enough to die. That was unfortunate, because now he's mine. I've never liked hospitals. It's the mix of fluorescent lights and the sterile chemical stench, the way every corner feels either overcrowded or completely abandoned. Maybe that's why Jonah looks nervous when he sees me. It's probably my face, unimpressed, disgusted, but it's hard to hide that here. Hospitals remind me of my sister, and she reminds me of, "Who are you?" Jonah croaks. His voice sounds like he gargled razors. He's lying there swaddled in gauze like a half-dead mummy. I shut the door behind me. "Lock it," he asks again. It hurts more to say this time. I don't answer. Not yet. We're not at that point in the conversation. I cross the room, unbutton my coat, and lay it over the chair by his bed. Then I sit. He watches me like I'm something out of a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Can't blame him. From his perspective, it's late at night. A stranger just walked into his room in a black suit, carrying a heavy briefcase and a look that spells bad news. He probably thinks I'm here to check his insurance or harvest his organs. He should be so lucky. I open the briefcase, pull out a few forms, and grab my clipboard. The document clipped to it is a standard 34-3A interrogation report. It helps evaluate a suspect's connection to supernatural acts of violence. Click. My pen hits the page. I write his name. He tries to talk again. Just a dry rasp. I keep writing. Pupils dilated, hair tangled, jaw twitching in sync with his rising panic. I fill in a dozen basic fields. Nothing interesting. Age. Location. Are you with? Jonah flinches mid-sentence. It must hurt like hell to talk. Still, he manages to finish. Are you with the police? I look up, hold eye contact, just long enough for it to mean something. Then I go back to my clipboard. Here's something they don't teach you about interviews. It's less about what you say and more about what you don't. Silence breaks people faster than the interrogation, and sure enough, Jonah cracks. He jerks upright, clumsy and aching, presses the call button. Once, twice, then he starts mashing it. No one's coming. That's not an accident. I told you, he's mine. He tries to scream, but it's too raw, barely more than a whisper. Nurse, hello. He's starting to understand I'm not supposed to be here. Smart kid. I finish the report, clear my throat. He turns to me, eyes frantic. The nurse isn't coming, I say, slipping my pen away. She clocked out early. Security too. It's just us now. Jonah stares at me, trying to piece together who I am. I already told the detectives everything, he insists. I know. I'm here to ask some different questions. Why? Who are you? I loosen my tie. Let's just say I represent a private group that's very interested in your case. We operate quietly. We call ourselves the Order of Alice. He squints. Never heard of it. That's how we prefer it. So, you're not with the police? He wants to believe it, but he's not sure. I lean forward, keep my voice low. No, I'm an inquisitor. I'm who you call when the thing hiding under your bed needs to be put down. His heart rate slows. I just told him monsters are real, that the world is a fragile illusion. And instead of panicking, he seems relieved. That's not normal. I cough. It's wet and sharp, like I'm hacking up part of my past. Honestly, that wouldn't be the worst outcome. What are you looking for? Jonah asks. I reach into my coat, pull out a cigarette. Relief. He looks like he wants to lecture me about smoking, but then he sees the gun at my side and thinks better of it. Smart move. You told the police you didn't kill your father, I say as I light up. That something else did. Is that still your story? He nods, or tries to. The bandages restrict his movement. Is that why you're here? Because you believe me? His voice is cautious but hopeful. It probably means a lot to be heard when everyone else thinks you're a murderer. I believe you, I tell him. He sinks back into the bed, visibly relieved. Thank God. The detectives made it sound like I was going to get charged with murder, life sentence stuff. Don't worry, you're not going to prison. You think they'll drop the charges? I laugh. Not intentionally. It just slips out. Absolutely not. If this state had the death penalty, you'd be front of the line. Another drag. More smoke. Then why did you say? Because by the end of tonight, you won't exist. The words land like a brick. He recoils, wraps his arms around himself. He probably thinks I mean the monster will come back. He's only half wrong. You're not guilty, I tell him. Just like the others. They weren't killers. They were victims. Witnesses to their own nightmares. Same as my sister. Jonah stares at me, confused. Christ. There goes my mouth again. What happened? To your sister, he asks. Same thing that happened to you, except she didn't mess up the suicide. I sigh and flick the ash from my cigarette onto the floor. That's why I'm interested in your case. I need to know the name of the thing that did this to you, that did this to her. His eyes go distant, a vacant look on his face like he's staring through me. I'm sorry, he whispers. I can't tell you its name. Sure you can. He shakes his head. No, you don't understand. It all started when I learned its name. If I say it, if you hear it, it'll come for me next. I lean forward, locking eyes with him. I'm counting on it. He recoils, visibly disturbed. You make it sound like you want to die. Maybe I do. I crush the cigarette into the armrest, hacking up a cough. A bit of blood mixed in. Lovely. Or maybe I don't get a say in the matter. Is it leukemia? I tell him. Stage 4. The doctor says I've got about a year if I quit smoking. A few months if I don't. You can figure the rest out. His gaze drops. My mom died of leukemia. It's a horrible disease. It is. But it's also an effective way to get him emotionally invested. I glance at the clock. 10:35 p.m. Time to pick up the pace. Listen, I'm not asking for sympathy. I know the stakes. I'm dead either way. So there's nothing you need to protect me from. Jonah shifts, like something's gnawing at him inside. It's not just about protecting you, he sputters. This thing doesn't just make you kill yourself. It makes you kill. I know that already. What I need from you is its name. He hesitates, grimacing, caught between his morals. He thinks I don't understand the danger, that he can save me from something by keeping quiet. But I don't have time for that. Jonah, you can save lives, prove your innocence. Right now, your father died for nothing. Tell me the name, and I can make his death mean something. There it is, the final push. Like most young men, Jonah wants to honor his father, even with him gone. His eyes meet mine, hollow. Okay, he says. Then he speaks the name, and each syllable is like music to my ears. He gives me what I've been searching for. The monster that destroyed my family, that took my sister. He gives me the key to hell. It's called Zipperjaw. I scribble it down on my clipboard, but as soon as the ink touches the paper, the name vanishes. That's it. Bullseye. Bingo. I can't help but smile. 30 years. That's how long I've been searching for my sister's killer. It's why I joined the Order of Alice in the first place. After all the dead ends, I had given up. But now, with one foot in the grave, it's finally shown itself. Right here. It's almost like it called me back for one final confrontation before I'm gone. My hand shakes. My whole arm trembles. I'm afraid. How long has it been since I felt real, pure fear? Oh God, Jonah whispers, burying his face in his hands. I shouldn't have said that. I look up, my smile faltering. You seem like a good person, he says, voice cracking. I shouldn't have done that. Is he really going to start crying now? It's fine, I tell him. I'm already dead, remember? Jonah lowers his hands, breathing deeply. You don't understand. Once you know its name, Zipperjaw doesn't just kill you. It finds the person you care about most and forces you to kill them. Just like it made you kill your father. He looks up, eyes filled with guilt. He feels awful, horrible. I know what's running through his head. He's imagining me killing my family, my kids, my parents, or a friend. He's thinking of Zipperjaw forcing me to kill someone innocent, just like it made him kill his father. I'm a monster, he mumbles, clutching his hair. No, Jonah, you're not a monster. If there's a monster here, it's me. He blinks through the tears. He doesn't understand. Not yet, but he will. I'm a difficult person, I say. I'm angry, bitter. Women avoid me. I don't have a wife or kids. My parents were abusive, and if my sister hadn't beaten me to it, I might have killed them myself. Jonah's expression softens, the guilt fading into sympathy and horror. I know. I'm dumping all my trauma on you. I'm not good at following social norms. Never have been. I chew my lip, my fingers tapping the armrest. My therapist calls it sociopathy, or maybe psychopathy. It's hard to remember. I don't have the DSM to check. Jonah's eyes narrow as the pieces start to click in his head. The point is, I continue, I don't have attachments, not like you. The closest I get to connection is through my work. I chuckled darkly. You could say I'm married to my job. Jonah swallows. What are you getting at? Zipperjaw killed my sister, I tell him, a small, absent smile creeping across my face. She's the only person I ever truly cared about. And now, I want to rip it to pieces. And the only way I get to do that is through you, Jonah. That just means I need your story, every detail. I need to know what happened the night you killed your father. The heart monitor starts to beep wildly. Jonah tries to move, but I'm up in a flash, shoving him back down. Let me go, he gasps. Get off me. Smart kid. He's pieced it together. But I can't risk him backing out. Not with midnight approaching, and Zipperjaw along with it. I press my finger to his jugular. Not hard, just enough to stop him from struggling. You understand now, don't you? He trembles like a trapped animal. His eyes flick to the clock, leaving 12 p.m. It's you, I whisper, my face close to his ear. Right now, you're the most important person in the world to me. He stiffens. The reality of it all is hitting him. The horror of what he's done. What I'm making him do. It's not personal. I just need him focused, motivated. He has to have a reason to push through his trauma and give me the truth. You asshole. He spits, voice thick with betrayal. You used me. I reach for my clipboard, pull my pen from my pocket. Didn't have a choice. People are dying. They're killing their loved ones, cutting off faces. Just like my sister did. I need to know why, Jonah. I need to understand why Zipperjaw does this. He recoils, disgusted. You really think your sister would be okay with this? Sacrificing some traumatized kid just to feed your revenge fantasy? My eye twitches. Adelaide, she wouldn't think it was stupid. She'd be proud of me, wouldn't she? I shake my head, pushing the thought of her back down. My sister's dead, I mutter. This isn't about what she'd want. It's about what I need. It's about making Zipperjaw pay for what it took from me. You're insane, he mutters. A lunatic. Maybe, I reply, my pen clicking against the clipboard. But you know what happens at midnight. So start talking, or pretty soon, you won't have a face to talk with. My 5-year-old son, Jacob, has started remembering a life that isn't his. I believe something is trying to pull him back. I know how strange that sounds, and if I hadn't experienced it myself, I'd probably scroll past this too. But if you have young children, especially really young ones, maybe read this before you go to bed tonight, or don't. I just wish I hadn't waited so long. Jacob is 5. He's a smart kid, sweet, and a little obsessed with dinosaurs and drawing, like most boys his age. He's never had any health issues or night terrors. Not until 6 weeks ago. It started small, things that were easy to ignore. One night, he woke me up around 2 a.m., just standing in the hallway, staring into the dark. When I asked him what he was doing, he said, I was listening to the floor. I laughed it off. Kids say weird things. But then he started waking up with odd questions like, where did the basement go? Or, what happened to the boy who used to sleep here? We live in an apartment. There is no basement. And Jacob's had that room since he was born. It got worse. He'd cry when I tried to tuck him in, saying things like, I don't want to go back in the hole. Or, he's watching from the wall crack. I cut all screen time, stopped scary books, and even asked his preschool if anything unusual happened there. Nothing. During the day, he was happy as ever, but every night, between 2 and 3 a.m., I'd find him awake, talking to someone, whispering, always smiling. Then, he stopped calling me Mom. He started calling me Elaine. That's not my name. I asked him who Elaine was, and he replied, "You," before, when the house was still burning. He said it as if I should know what he meant. A week later, I found his drawings, pages filled with stick figures, all normal except for one, a tall, shadowy figure with black arms that reached the ground and a wide hole in its chest. It appeared over and over, always standing next to a little boy. Jacob called it the Keeper. He said, "The Keeper lives under where the bricks were." I asked what bricks, and he said, "The bricks they buried me under." That night, I barely slept. The next day, I did some research. Our apartment complex was built in the early 90s. Before that, it was a group foster home that burned down in 1989. 7 children died, all under 10. One body was never found. Eli Matthews found a newspaper article with a grainy photo of him. Jacob looks exactly like him. Same chin, same freckles, same scar above the eyebrow. I showed it to my mother without explaining it, and she asked when Jacob had taken that old-timey photo. The next night I found him digging at the floor of his closet with a spoon. When I asked what he was doing, he looked up and smiled, not like a 5-year-old would. He's almost done fixing the hole. Once it's open, I have to go back. I asked, "Who?" "The Keeper." He promised I'd get my real mom back. Last night I got a phone call at exactly 2:13 a.m. No caller ID, just static and breathing. Then a voice, low and cracked, like it came from inside a wall, said, "Elaine, he was never yours." I ran to Jacob's room. He was standing in the corner facing the wall, smiling. He turned to me and said, "He found the basement. There is no basement." This morning I checked his closet again. I noticed the carpet was raised in the corner. Underneath it was a wooden trapdoor. I swear wasn't there before. I opened it. There's a staircase, and it goes down. I'm posting this from my phone. I'm taking a flashlight, and I'm going in. I don't know what else to do. If you don't hear from me again, don't let him leave the house. My brother believed he was protecting us from something he called the patterned ones. At first, I thought he was just imagining things. But now, I'm starting to see it too. My brother didn't think he was God. Not exactly. But he did believe that he could see things that others couldn't. That the rest of us were too distracted, too conditioned, or too blind to notice. It started with simple patterns. Coincidences, he said. But they weren't just coincidences. And when we lost him, it didn't feel like he died. It was more like he disappeared. Or maybe, like a virus, he just moved on to someone else. Dan wasn't always like this. He used to be the life of the party, the class clown, the kid who made family dinners feel like a comedy show. After school, most of his friends went to college, but Dan stayed behind. He said he needed time to figure things out, but what he really meant was that he didn't know who he was without an audience. When that spotlight disappeared, he started creating one for himself. He'd tell us about his new job, how things were going great, but the details never added up. Different job titles, fake co-workers. He just wanted to seem important, like his life had purpose. It didn't start with anything dramatic. No voices, no threats, just patterns. He said he kept seeing the same car, a rust-colored SUV. Then he saw it again outside the store, again at the gas station. He started writing down license plate numbers. Then it was too many red cars on one street, too many silver sedans in a single parking lot. He spent hours with the radio on, flipping between stations like he was trying to decode something. He'd stop for just a second, enough time to hear part of a sentence. "They're stitching it together," he told me once. One station starts a sentence, the next one finishes it. He believed that someone, or something, was trying to communicate with him through the gaps, through the noise. We kept telling ourselves it would pass. If we ignored it, maybe it would just go away. Then Dan showed up at our house out of nowhere. His hair was greasy, his sleeves were torn, and his eyes were twitching uncontrollably. He wouldn't sit down or eat. Then, suddenly, he turned to me and said, "You told them." "What?" "You showed them where I live." "Dan, don't lie to me," he said, breathing heavily. "The file with the address metadata. In the temp folder." "You think I don't check the temp folder?" My dad stepped in between us, like he was protecting me from a dangerous animal. Dan's lips twitched. "They're using you now. You, her. The routers were just the beginning. The light pulses. The searches." He turned toward our mom. "You use the search engine. They feed on that." He wasn't yelling, but his words came out fast, like a machine gun. "I blocked it. I blacked it out. I blacked it out." Then he screamed at the ceiling and ran out the door. The next morning, I found the front door slightly open and a USB stick on the welcome mat. I didn't plug it in. I called the number. They didn't arrive in a marked car. No ambulance, no flashing lights. Just a silver van, silent as fog, with 3 men in dark clothes. No badges, not police, not paramedics, just efficient. Dan fought back. He screamed, kicked, clawed at the door frame. "You want proof?" he shouted. "You think I'm crazy?" Then how did I know about the card? One of them injected a needle into his arm. His voice started slurring. He stared at me as he collapsed. "You shouldn't have kept it." The van doors closed without a sound. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet. But as I sat in the silence, I realized something. I never showed him the card. I hadn't told anyone. The hospital told me no visitors for the first month. Adjustment, period. They needed to minimize outside influence. That was fine with me. I told myself I was done, that he wasn't my responsibility anymore. I deleted his email. I laughed when I saw 3 red cars drive by. I rolled my eyes at the radio. But then I saw the same silver van outside my apartment 3 times in one day. Then I found my coffee mug in the freezer. Then I opened a text file on my laptop that I didn't remember writing. It was just numbers. Then the letter came, typed, cold, from the hospital. Dan was improving. He would soon be allowed access to his personal belongings. It was signed with his name, but he never typed anything. He hated typing. He always signed cards with the dramatic swirls and sharp loops. This signature was small, mechanical, and the thing is, I never packed him anything. The night before my visit, I burned the card. I watched it turn to ash. "I'm not Dan," I said. "I don't believe in ghosts." The next day, the hospital felt too quiet, too clean. No nurses, just cameras, They didn't let me speak to him, just watch through the glass. He looked thinner, quieter, calmer. He didn't look up, but before they took him away, he slid something across the table. It was a white hospital card with the address and my name handwritten in the corner. Found it in my coat pocket when I got home. I don't remember taking it. And I think I left the front door unlocked. Just for a second. I record dreams for a living. 3 months ago, I received an unexpected job offer from a company I had never heard of. No interview, no background check, just an email. The message read, "Dream research assistant needed. Quiet night work. High pay. Must be discreet." At first, I thought it was a scam, but I clicked on it anyway. I was behind on rent by 2 months, exhausted from delivering food and working night shifts at a gas station. 2 days later, I found myself standing in a windowless room at the back of a warehouse on the outskirts of town, reading a non-disclosure agreement that could have been written in blood. You will not share any details about the work, equipment, or subjects. Any breach will be met with legal and appropriate consequences. I signed it. I shouldn't have. The room I worked in was simple. 2 chairs, 2 monitors, and 1 machine. It looked like a dome, about the size of a watermelon, covered with metallic wires and nodes. The label on it read, "Mimir Neural Sync Unit." They explained that it could interface with REM wave activity, allowing us to observe and catalog dream visuals in real time. I didn't ask for further details. I just followed the instructions. Every night, from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., I would arrive, put on the headset, and watch people's dreams unfold like grainy, half-finished films. My task was to log what I saw. Tags, colors, symbols, emotions, and distortions. Most of the dreams were forgettable, bizarre, disconnected fragments. It was like the mind dumping its waste into the subconscious. One night I watched a woman relive her wedding day, but her groom's face kept changing into her dead dog. A man had a recurring dream about drowning in cereal. Another person simply sat in a red chair in an endless desert for hours. I didn't care. I just logged and tagged. The pay was good, and the work was quiet. Until shift 27. That night, the dream started with a man walking down a long white hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing above. He wore a dark hoodie, his face hidden. His steps echoed through the hallway, which had doors labeled with numbers. Room 11, room 12, room 13. He stopped at room 16, opened the door, and stepped inside. And that's when I felt it. Cold. It wasn't like before. I wasn't just watching anymore. It felt as if I was inside the dream, as if my thoughts were shifting into his. The room inside was disturbingly familiar. Cracked white walls, a humming mini fridge, a ceiling fan with a broken blade, a desk with an old laptop, and a blue chair. It was my apartment, the one I lived in right now. I recognized the scratch on the window frame, the photo of me and my sister at the carnival. On the desk was my journal, the one I kept locked away. In the dream, the man opened it, and a single line was written over and over in shaky block letters. "They are watching you too." I ripped off the headset and hit the emergency alert button. The first time I'd ever used it. But no one came. The next day, I demanded answers. I found Dr. Calder, the lead researcher. What the hell was that last dream? I asked. That was my apartment, that journal. No one else knows about it. She didn't blink. ID 616D, I said. Who is that? She stared at me for a long time, then replied calmly, You were told not to ask questions. But, that's me, isn't it? I'm the subject. You've been watching me. She paused. Then with a faint smile, she said, No, you're just the receiver. And with that, she walked away. From that point, things only got worse. The dreams were no longer random. They always began in that same hallway, with the same man and the same numbered doors. Room 17, room 18, room 19. Each night, he'd open the next door, and each time, it would be a different place from my past. The classroom where I wet myself in first grade. The church basement where I found my uncle passed out drunk. My sister's old bedroom the night after the accident. Sometimes he just stood there and stared. Other times, he whispered things. Once, he looked directly into the dream feed and said, Why did you lie? I stopped sleeping. I'd go home, lie in bed, and feel like I was still being watched. There was a black van parked across the street. The flicker of the hallway camera, even when no one passed by. I began having dreams outside of the lab. Dreams that felt eerily similar to the ones I'd seen at work. The same angle, the same man. But now, I couldn't tell if I was dreaming his dream, or if he was dreaming mine. Then came shift 42. The hallway came to an end. No more doors. The man stood at the last one. Room 23. Inside, it was pitch black. For what felt like an eternity, he just stood there. Then, he stepped inside. The feed went dead. A message appeared on the screen. MeMirSync terminated accessing deep core files. Another screen popped up, a split feed. On the left, a live camera view of the break room where I had just been 20 minutes earlier. On the right, old black and white footage. I watched myself, sleeping, years younger. Electrodes attached to my head. Someone off camera whispered, You're going to forget this. It's better if you forget. I ripped off the headset, ran down the hallway, but the door I thought led outside was gone. In its place was another white hallway filled with numbered doors. Room 1, room 2, room 3. I don't know how long I've been here now. Sometimes I think I've escaped. I wake up in my bed. The world seems normal until I spot the man in the hoodie across the street. Until I check my phone and see a recording of my dream from the night before. I'm starting to think the job was never real. Maybe I never left the lab, or maybe I never even applied in the first place. I only wanted a paycheck. What I got was a front row seat to my own breakdown. And if anyone's reading this, if this somehow shows up on your feed, ask yourself, when was the last time you really woke up? Because I'm starting to think some of us are still dreaming.